People live in an endless cosmic prison, knowing they won't make it out alive. 5 years before the Battle of Yavin, Cassian Andor arrives on the planet Morlana 1, a territory controlled by the Pre-Mor Authority Corporation. Trying to remain as inconspicuous as possible, he slips into a brothel under the cover of night to search for his missing sister, Carrie. After talking to the manager, he asks about a girl from the planet Kenari. Their conversation attracts the attention of two Pre-Mor Authority security guards, who become upset because they believe they should be served first, having arrived before the outsider. While the woman looks for the girl, the two guards continue to hassle Cassian, growing angrier as he doesn't react to their provocations and maintains his composure. Eventually, the manager informs him that his sister quit her job 2 months ago and vanished without a trace, leaving no information on her whereabouts. Realizing there's nothing more he can do, Cassian quickly leaves the brothel and heads back to his ship. On his way, the two security guards catch up to him, eager to assert their authority and superiority. They threaten to fine Cassian for violating curfew and parking his ship behind the dam. Trying to avoid trouble and arrest, Cassian offers them all the money he has in his pocket. Despite his cooperation, the guards continue to mock him and threaten to detain him for identity verification. Unwilling to let that happen, Cassian headbutts one of the guards, knocking him out, and seizes the weapon from the other. When he realizes the first guard isn't breathing, the remaining guard begs for his life, promising to cover it up as an accident. But Cassian, not wanting to leave any witnesses, kills the second guard and flees the planet, setting course for Ferrix, a free trade world. The next morning, Cassian's adoptive mother's droid, B2 Emo, arrives at his place and finds him still asleep. Cassian recalls his time with the tribe on Kenari, where he enjoyed a carefree life. One day, their peace was shattered by a spaceship that crash-landed a few kilometers from their camp. Believing there might be survivors and eager to explore the wreckage, members of the tribe set out on a journey. Despite being young and against his sister's wishes, Cassian, then known as Kassa, decided to join them. After waking up and talking with the droid, Cassian asks B2 Emo to lie and say it doesn't know his whereabouts. He then meets up with his friend Brasso, asking him to remember a cover story that they spent the previous night together. Brasso tweaks the story and agrees to back Cassian, understanding that his friend has gotten himself into a sticky situation and might be in danger. Meanwhile, on Morlana 1, Cyril Karn reports to the chief inspector that they have found 2 bodies. Cyril's assistant is ready to commit all resources to tracking down the criminal, but the chief inspector is reluctant to take any action. He prefers to meet with Imperial representatives to report the situation and doesn't want to ruin his statistics. Deciding it's easier to cover up the crime, the inspector instructs Cyril to pass it off as an accident. However, Cyril, being meticulous and principled, is determined to solve the case and use all available resources. With the help of his team, he identifies the old ship Cassian borrowed and tracks it all the way to Ferrix. After meeting with his friend, Cassian heads to Bix's workshop and asks her to contact a black market buyer to sell a Starpath module, a valuable piece of Imperial navigation technology. Although Bix is willing to buy the module herself without involving the secret buyer, Cassian wants to get the best price possible. Agreeing to help, Bix goes to a secret location to call the buyer and arrange a meeting. Bix's boyfriend, Tim, is suspicious and follows her but loses track of her in a crowded street. Later, Cassian avoids a creditor, lacking the funds to repay his debt. To cover up the evidence of his activities on Morlana 1, Cassian hacks into the spaceport system to erase the records of his night flight. In a flashback, a group from the Kenari tribe heads towards the crashed spaceship but first encounters a massive Republic mining operation. To avoid drawing attention, they retreat into the forest, where they find the wrecked ship. The leader of the exploration team decides to approach and check if any crew survived. One of the pilots shoots a member of the tribe, who is then attacked with poison darts. The tribe leaves the scene to return their fallen warrior home, but Kassa, as he was then known, decides to stay and enter the ship. Cyril interrogates the brothel staff and learns that the guest mentioned being from the planet Kenari. Cyril puts out a search warrant for this individual, and soon Bix, her boyfriend Tim, and Cassian's mother, Marva, become aware of it. Marva, worried about her son and the situation, urges him to take action quickly. Reassuring his mother and promising to sort things out, Cassian heads to a bar, learning from a droid that his friend is also aware of his search. Meeting Bix at the bar, Cassian is ready to sell her the module at a reduced price, but it's too late, as the secret buyer will arrive the next morning and he needs to wait. Tim sees his girlfriend talking to Cassian and holding his hand. In a fit of jealousy and under the influence of alcohol, he reports to Pre-Mor that Cassian is from Kenari. Upon receiving this information, Cyril checks it out but finds no confirmation. The only person pointing to Cassian is the brothel's manager, who recognizes him as the guest from that night. Cyril joins forces with Linus Mosk, a dedicated officer who is ready to allocate a squad to capture the suspected criminal. Assembling a team, Cyril and Linus head to Ferrix, preparing to apprehend Cassian. That night, Cassian breaks into the spaceport and checks the ship's hidden compartment to retrieve the precious module. In the morning, Cassian gives final instructions to his mother's droid, ensuring it keeps an eye on Marva and stays in touch through old comms. Tim remains highly suspicious of Bix, as she has a busy day ahead. Suspecting she is lying and secretly meeting with Cassian, Tim is determined to report her actions to the authorities. Meanwhile, Cassian arranges a flight to another planet, agreeing to pay any amount to escape before he gets arrested. Soon, the secret buyer, Luthen Rael, arrives on Ferrix. In a flashback, Cassian sneaks inside the crashed spaceship. Finding no living crew members, he becomes enraged over the actions of the only person they previously discovered. Seeking revenge, Cassian begins to smash everything in sight. A few minutes later, Marva and her husband Clem, thieves looking to steal valuable parts to sell on the black market, enter the ship. Upon meeting the boy, they attempt to communicate but realize they speak different languages. Security approaches the ship and eliminates all intruders. Realizing the danger and having no time to explain, Marva uses a tranquilizer to put the boy to sleep and escapes with him on their ship. Back in the present, Cassian is aware that Pre-Mor security could arrest him at any moment. Meeting with Brasso, he promises to repay all debts and asks him to look after his mother so she doesn't feel alone. Upon arriving in Ferrix, Luthen meets with Bix and learns about the current situation. The security forces also arrive on the planet and are clearly unwelcome. Cyril and Linus first go to Marva's house and conduct a thorough search, demanding that she surrender her son. Although Marva does not disclose Cassian's whereabouts, he tries to contact the droid, which leads Pre-Mor security to determine that the fugitive is at an old abandoned factory. As the three groups head out to find Cassian, he meets with Luthen. Luthen is willing to pay any price for the module and even offers a few thousand extra credits for the story behind how Cassian acquired such a valuable item. Impressed by Cassian's cunning and audacity, Luthen invites him to join the Rebel Alliance for larger-scale sabotage operations. Cassian is unnerved by how much the unknown buyer knows about him but decides to trust Luthen, who destroys the radio used by the officers to track Cassian's location. Bix learns about the arrival of the security forces and realizes someone has betrayed Cassian. Suspecting Tim, she ends her relationship with him and rushes to help her best friend. The security forces beat and arrest Bix, while Tim tries to intervene but ends up becoming another victim of the government's brutality. In an attempt to protect the officer who fired a shot, the commanding officer sends him back to the ship. The soldier tries to flee the planet quickly but ends up being sabotaged by Brasso and crashes. The city erupts into alarm as its inhabitants trigger every available surface alert, causing the Pre-Mor security to panic. One group locates Cassian and Luthen, but Luthen detonates an explosion, initiating a fierce gunfight. Despite heavy losses, the guards fail to capture the criminals, and Cassian is unable to retrieve the precious module. In their desperate escape, Cassian and Luthen flee the factory just before it collapses. With the mounting casualties, the remaining soldiers and officers decide to split up. Cyril hides in one of the buildings, which Cassian eventually discovers. Cassian interrogates Cyril, learning about the number of personnel sent to arrest him. As the alarm subsides, fear intensifies among the soldiers. Cassian and Luthen attempt to escape in a vehicle, but it is destroyed in an explosion. Moments later, it becomes clear that the explosion was a diversion, taking even more lives. As Cyril and Linus grapple with their losses, Cassian and Luthen make their departure from the planet. En route to the planet Aldhani, Luthen reveals that a group of rebels is preparing to attack an Imperial airbase to steal the payroll for the garrison. Cassian is skeptical of the plan, believing it to be overly ambitious and likely to end in disaster. Despite his fears, Cassian reluctantly agrees to join the group, adopting the alias of his deceased adoptive father, Clem. Luthen promises a payment of 200,000 credits for a successful mission and temporarily hands over his pendant as a sign of good faith. Upon arriving on Aldhani, Luthen meets with Vel, the leader of the rebel group, and informs her that he has brought another participant for the upcoming operation. Vel is initially doubtful but is coerced by Luthen into accepting Cassian into the team, acknowledging that Cassian is a mercenary who will not be missed if he doesn't survive the dangerous mission. As they make their way to the camp, Cassian tries to learn more about Luthen, but Vel is evasive and orders that Luthen's involvement in the operation not be discussed with the other group members. At the camp, Cassian is greeted with open hostility and distrust, but it is understood that additional help will be beneficial. Meanwhile, Cyril, Linus, and their superior receive a severe reprimand for the events on Ferrix. They are all placed on compulsory leave and dismissed in disgrace. Not wanting to stay in a place where he is regarded as a failure, Cyril returns home and reconnects with his mother. At the same time, Lieutenant Deidre Miro of Imperial Intelligence takes a keen interest in the incident. She is determined to obtain the case materials but faces resistance from her colleagues, who view her actions as an attempt to curry favor with higher-ups rather than a genuine concern for the Empire's problems. Luthen travels to Coruscant, where he poses as an antique dealer and meets with Senator Mon Mothma. Although she supports the opposition, it is becoming increasingly difficult for her to maintain this stance. She faces constant changes in drivers, security, and colleagues, raising the risk of espionage and exposure. Unable to provide the rebels with supplies and weapons, she promises to do everything she can to improve the situation. Cassian, eager for the upcoming venture, reviews all the details of the operation but is puzzled about how they will escape from the garrison's fighters using an old and slow spaceship. The group reveals that a rare natural phenomenon, resembling a meteor shower, occurs on Aldhani once every 3 years. The event is set to happen in 3 days, and they plan to use it as cover for their operation. The next morning, Cassian wakes up to find that all his belongings are missing except for Luthen's pendant, which he had hidden in his pocket. Arvel Skeen has taken Cassian's clothes, weapons, and gear to inspect them and ensure that the new rebel recruit isn't a traitor. Skeen is highly distrustful of the newcomer, but Cassian tries to gain his trust by recounting details about each of Skeen's tattoos. Having spent 3 years in prison as a teenager, Cassian harbors a deep hatred for the Empire, matching that of his fellow rebels. Nemik, who trusts Cassian, now operating under the alias Clem, shares his ideas with him. Skeen advises Cassian to avoid being too honest, as it could lead to trouble and negative consequences. Meanwhile, Cyril falls into a depression, fixated on the Cassian case and hoping for another chance to catch him. As he considers new career opportunities, his mother suggests he seek help from their influential uncle. Overbearing and controlling, she pressures Cyril into agreeing, and arranges for her brother to find Cyril a good position. Inspector Blevin buys an old hotel on Ferrix to establish a headquarters for his unit. Lieutenant Miro, feeling demoralized, sees this as a move that preempts her efforts and hinders her work. At the same time, she and her colleague Hurt discover that the rebels are engaging in regular thefts of Imperial technology and weaponry. Mon Mothma organizes a charity, but neither her husband nor her daughter supports her, leading to constant family disputes. Later, Vel and Tarman ask Cassian to explain how to calculate a spaceship's cargo capacity. Cassian is shocked by the question and realizes that the group is completely unprepared for the heist and lacks knowledge on how to escape the garrison unnoticed. As the only one with expertise in the robbery details, Cassian insists on piloting the ship himself, unwilling to trust his life to the inexperienced rebels. Meanwhile, Imperial officer and double agent Lieutenant Gorn secretly prepares the garrison, ensuring that the infiltration will go smoothly. The group continues to train rigorously under Tarman's command. Cassian, as the expert, offers valuable advice, and though the others are reluctant, they eventually agree that he is right. As the group moves toward the garrison, with only a few days left before the attack, Vel shares the personal motivations of each rebel. Gorn lost his beloved due to the Empire, and Skeen lost his brother. They have all rebelled against the system but are too weak to act alone. At one of their stops, Skeen notices Cassian's precious pendant and distresses him even more. Realizing he has no choice, Cassian admits that he is a mercenary who joined the heist purely for the money. At night, the group signals Gorn and splits into 2 teams. The women advance first while the men wait for the right moment. Luthen, anxiously monitoring the news of the heist from his antique shop, waits for Vel and her team to make contact. At dawn, the garrison of Aldani is swarmed by locals who come to witness a miraculous phenomenon. The soldiers, required to let them through, inadvertently provide cover for the rebels who follow closely behind, posing as armed security. Disguised as security personnel, they meet Gorn, who guides them into the restricted area. While the men play their part, Chinta and Vel approach the wall and activate a device that jams communication with the fighters and other military bases. The garrison commander and his associates welcome the locals with a gift of animal skin, which the leader of the indigenous people burns in a fire, symbolizing his disdain for the Empire and its people. With the guard distracted, Gorn allows the rebel squad to escort the commander into the secured building. The rebels take the Bias family hostage and force them to gain access to the garrison's payroll vault. They also capture a dozen soldiers and order them to load the cargo ship with credits. One of the communication officers notices something amiss and overhears the rebels' conversation. He manages to alert the nearest fighter base and send a distress signal to the soldiers. As the soldiers confront the rebels, Gorn instructs the commander to claim that it is a covert operation and reminds him of the hostage situation. The anxious Bias suffers a heart attack and collapses. Realizing the situation is dire, the soldiers open fire, killing Gorn. The remaining rebels engage in a firefight, resulting in the death of Tarman. Cassian is nearly strangled by a soldier hiding in the ship, but Nemik comes to his rescue. The group manages to escape, leaving behind the corpses and Chinta, who remains at the garrison. Cassian, Skeen, Vel, and Nemik take off, but during the ascent, Nemik is crushed by a heavy cart of money, sustaining severe injuries. Vel administers a stimulant to keep Nemik conscious and sets the course for their flight. Cassian skillfully pilots the ship through the meteor shower, evading pursuing fighters. The quartet heads to another planet for medical help for the injured Nemik. While Vel stays with Nemik and supervises the doctor, Skeen proposes abandoning them and splitting the stolen credits. The total haul amounts to over 80 million credits, enough for a fresh start. Disgusted by Skeen's betrayal, Cassian executes him and returns to the ship to discover that Nemik has died. He informs Vel of Skeen's betrayal and his own actions, but Vel accuses Cassian of theft and calls him a criminal. Cassian tells the truth, returning Luthen's pendant and claiming only the 200,000 credits promised initially. Luthen, upon learning of the successful heist, privately celebrates the victory. Cyril, watching news reports of the garrison attack, realizes that the rebels are preparing something major. Though he wants to be involved in the investigation, he's relegated to a position at the Bureau of Standards, which feels like a demotion. Meanwhile, the Imperial Security Service Titans control and implement severe measures to ensure that every infraction is met with maximum punishment. Mon Mothma meets with Luthen, suspecting him of orchestrating the garrison raid. She pleads with him to avoid escalating the conflict prematurely, but it's too late. Luthen, aware of the consequences, has robbed the garrison to fund the rebels who are gearing up for a full-scale war against the Empire. While Chinta continues her risky assignment monitoring incoming ships, Luthen's assistant meets with Vel and orders Cassian's execution to prevent him from revealing Luthen's identity. That evening, Mon Mothma dines with her former classmate Gollum, now a banker. She asks for his help to access a family fund and hints that she despises the Empire as much as he does. During an Imperial Security Service meeting, Blevin voices doubts about Meero, who has been violating data acquisition protocols. Meero argues that the raids and thefts of Imperial equipment could have devastating consequences and promises to expose the rebel network, which earns her the trust of her superiors and a transfer to Ferrix. Late at night, Cassian returns to Ferrix and suggests to his mother that they escape to a safer place. Marva informs him that stormtroopers have arrived and Ferrix is under full Imperial control. Reflecting on the stormtroopers, Cassian remembers how his adoptive father, Clem, was a casualty. Clem was mistaken for a rebel while trying to calm the crowd throwing stones at stormtroopers and was executed in the central square. Marva asks him to wait until morning to think it over. Cassian then meets with Bix, who no longer wants to see him and blames him for bringing Imperial forces to their planet. Understanding that their friendship is over, Cassian says goodbye, leaving her 12,000 credits to help with her debts. The next morning, Cassian returns home to find that his mother has decided to stay on Ferrix. Marva feels she is too old to flee and wants to organize a secret resistance against the increasing number of Imperial forces. The recent garrison raid has invigorated her and made her believe in the rebel strength. Cassian wants to tell her about his involvement in the attack but hesitates and instead says his farewells, asking the droid to look after her until he returns. Cassian sets off alone to the tourist haven of Niamos. After spending a night with a woman, he visits a shop but runs into coastal stormtroopers. Mistaking him for a petty criminal, they arrest him. In court, Cassian tries to defend himself but is sentenced to 6 years in prison. Meero summons Cyril for questioning to gather more details about the incident on Ferrix. The former deputy security officer requests access to the case files and points out missing data. He is eager to answer all her questions and even offers to help track down Cassian to exact revenge for the failed mission and his ruined reputation. Cyril is determined to use every resource at his disposal to find the fugitive, but Meero, not needing his assistance, threatens him with dismissal if he continues to meddle in matters outside his current position in the Bureau of Standards. During a meeting with the Imperial Security Bureau, Meero proposes a thorough search of Ferrix to locate Cassian and his associates and to suppress the rebels who are covertly planning a war. Meanwhile, Cassian and other prisoners arrive on the planet Narkina 5, a sprawling prison complex housing thousands of inmates. The guards don't carry weapons, as they are unnecessary. Escape is impossible. The floor is made of a special type of metal that delivers painful electric shocks, which is why prisoners are barefoot while the guards wear shoes. Cassian is assigned to a labor crew of 7 men who must work as quickly and efficiently as possible, competing with other crews. The worst performing shift is punished, while the best receives better food. At night, prisoners are forbidden from leaving the rest area, as the floor becomes lethally charged, killing anyone who steps on it. Mon Mothma continues to meet with bankers and other contacts, trying to discreetly secure funding for the resistance against the Empire. A month passes, and Cassian begins to adjust to prison life, striving to excel in his work to earn better food. Meanwhile, Marva's health deteriorates, and she could pass away at any moment. Despite this, she remains defiant, searching for weaknesses in the Imperial Security Bureau's hotel, hoping the rebels can infiltrate and eliminate the enemy. Brasso is unaware of Cassian's whereabouts and asks Bix to find him. Bix tries to contact Luthen for information, but he ignores the call, fearing their conversation might be intercepted. Vel and Chinta arrive on Ferrix, with one of them renting a room in a hotel near Marva's home, hoping that Cassian will return and become an easy target. Life in prison becomes increasingly difficult as Cassian witnesses fellow inmates stepping onto the electrified floor to end their lives. Realizing that escaping alive seems nearly impossible, he begins to devise a plan for a breakout. Luthen leaves Coruscant and meets with Saw Gerrera to negotiate a deal for weapons and supplies. However, their old friendship turns into a heated argument due to differing ideologies. Back on Ferrix, a squad of stormtroopers arrests and interrogates Bix's contact, and soon after, they capture Bix herself, bringing her in for questioning by Meero. Meero offers Bix the chance to voluntarily share everything she knows, but Bix is reluctant to cooperate. Meero instructs the doctor to use inhumane torture techniques, including horrific sounds, to break Bix's will. Eventually, Bix reveals what she knows about Cassian, speculating that he is involved in the Aldhani attack. She mentions he came home with money and was clean-shaven, which gives Meero a new lead pointing towards the rebels. However, Bix knows almost nothing about Luthen and can't provide any useful information about him. After the torture, Meero permits the public execution of the radio operator but holds on to Bix, just in case she proves useful in identifying Luthen. Meanwhile, Cassian continues working in the prison. During one shift, an elderly worker in his crew becomes ill and struggles with his duties. To cover for his colleague, Cassian asks another inmate to help Olaf and ensure that the guards don't notice he's falling short of his quota. Concealing his plans from most, Cassian secretly saws through a pipe in the bathroom, hoping it will help them escape. He has an accomplice who suggests attacking the guards when they're on the lift, but Cassian deems this plan too risky. Mon Mothma remains active in politics, but more and more senators are turning away from her. Her cousin Vel arrives to offer support, encouraging Mon Mothma to stay reserved and discreet. Vel herself pretends to be a wealthy, apolitical woman, hiding her true role as a rebel. At the same time, Mon Mothma continues meeting with her former classmate and banker to secure funds for the rebellion while also concealing part of her financial transactions. After one shift, the prisoners notice something strange. In the glass corridor where they can communicate with inmates from other blocks, they realize that the guards are deceiving them. That evening, Cassian tries to convince the floor manager, Kino, to escape, but Kino is firmly against it, believing it's better to complete their shifts with a clear conscience. A few days later, unsettling rumors spread among the prisoners that the guards have executed an entire block. After a shift, Olaf falls ill, and Kino asks for a doctor. The doctor, having put the old man to sleep, reveals to Kino and Cassian that a crew was executed the previous day for discovering the truth about the prison. In reality, they never release anyone, just transfer prisoners to other blocks. Realizing that they can't leave alive and that the prison won't let them go, Kino decides to collaborate with Cassian and join the escape plan. Cyril meets with Miro and declares his readiness to cooperate and do whatever it takes to track down Cassian. Miro, however, rejects his assistance and warns Cyril not to follow her if he wants to avoid trouble. Shortly after, Miro is informed that they have captured a rebel pilot. Under torture, the pilot reveals a planned attack on the power station at Spellhouse. Miro orders a false accident to be staged so the rebels don't learn about the capture of their pilot. After Olaf's death, Cassian and Kino discuss the possibility of escaping the prison. Kino suggests they come up with a plan, but Cassian insists they can't wait any longer. He already has an idea and wants to execute it the next day, at the moment when the guards bring in a new prisoner. Back in the cell block with the other inmates, Kino decides to reveal the truth about what's happening in the prison. He admits that there's no way out alive and that all 5,000 prisoners are trapped. The only way to leave this place is to escape together. Meanwhile, Marva's health deteriorates, and a doctor is called in to see her. Vel's friend and Miro's assistants are watching closely, expecting Cassian to show up to see his mother at any moment. Mon Mothma meets with Davos Skulldun, a suspicious but successful businessman. He's willing to help with funding, but in return, he proposes introducing his son to Mon Mothma's daughter. She is firmly against this, refusing to use her daughter's marriage as a bargaining chip for financial support. Knowing that a new prisoner is about to arrive, Cassian sneaks into the bathroom and sabotages the plumbing, causing a flood on their level. This disables the security system, preventing the guards from electrifying the floor to punish disobedient prisoners. The inmates join forces, attack the guards, and seize their weapons. Despite the loss of many lives, the prisoners press on, spreading the word to other levels and encouraging more prisoners to join the escape. The guards, realizing they are outnumbered, hide to save themselves. Kino and Cassian reach the control room and force the operators to cut the power. Kino then delivers a powerful speech, motivating the prisoners to fight for their freedom. They manage to escape the prison, which is surrounded by water, but Kino stays behind as he cannot swim. Luthen receives a signal from Lonnie, a double agent and informant working within the Imperial Security Bureau. Not trusting Lonnie, whom he hasn't seen in over a year, Luthen establishes contact through a communicator. Once he confirms it's not a trap, they meet in person. Lonnie informs Luthen about the Bureau's new plans, including an imminent attack on the late pilot's group. Luthen remains unfazed by this, accepting the sacrifices necessary to achieve his goals. During their conversation, Lonnie asks to be released from his role, but he realizes that he is trapped in this life and cannot escape the political turmoil. Luthen, who has devoted his entire life to the cause, also has no intention of stopping and knows he will see this fight through to the end. Marva passes away due to illness, and it's decided to give her an honorable funeral on Ferrix. Her droid is deeply saddened and falls into depression, so Brasso stays overnight at Cassian's mother's house to comfort him. When Miro learns about Marva's death, she allows the funeral to proceed, believing it will help root out the resistance movement on the planet. Vel meets with Luthen's assistant, sharing the news about Cassian's mother, thinking it's significant information. Meanwhile, Mon Mothma confides in her cousin that she's being forced to marry off her daughter to the son of a wealthy man to secure funding and cover a budget shortfall. At the same time, her daughter starts attending group meetings to study Chandraland culture and traditions. Miro continues to torture Bix, suspecting that the secret buyer was Krieger, who's planning an attack on Spellhouse. Cyril also hears about Marva's death and assumes that Cassian will return home for her funeral. Luthen visits Saw Gerrera and learns that he has decided to support Krieger's attack. Luthen urges him not to go through with it, revealing that the Imperial security forces are aware of the plan and it's a trap. Saw wants to warn Krieger, but Luthen advises against it. They can either sacrifice 30 people to make the Empire believe in its own strength and continue preparing for a rebellion and war, or they can save Krieger's men but jeopardize the entire mission. After some thought, Saw realizes Luthen is right, and the human losses are a small price to pay for the greater goals they're aiming to achieve. On his way back, Luthen's ship is stopped by an Imperial patrol for an inspection. Realizing he can't allow this, Luthen stalls for time and destroys the magnetic tractor beam pulling his ship in. He then engages in a battle with several TIE fighters, taking them out before escaping into the vastness of space. Meanwhile, Cassian and Ruescott successfully reach land and try to find a way off Narkina 5. They soon spot two aliens and attempt to steal their ship but are easily captured. The aliens could have turned them in for a reward but, upon learning they're headed to Niamos, decide to let them go and even give them their ship. Once on Niamos, Cassian breaks into the hotel room where he was staying before his arrest and finds his suitcase filled with money and weapons. He calls Ferrix to leave a message for his mother, only to learn she has passed away. Determined to return home, Cassian parts ways with Ruescott, agreeing to do everything in his power to expose the Empire's unjust prison policies and bring them to light. Miro arrives on Ferrix to take charge of the local Imperial garrison and capture Cassian. Vel and Luthen also show up, planning to let the security forces catch Cassian first so they can eliminate him afterward. That night, Cassian sneaks back to Ferrix and contacts his friends to attend his mother's funeral. Meanwhile, the Imperial security forces successfully thwart Krieger's attack, killing all the rebels. Some regret not taking any prisoners, as it could have led to valuable information, but the rebels' plans remain unknown. Suspecting Mon Mothma of being connected to them, the security forces continue to secretly monitor the senator. Cyril and the officer who was fired with him also arrive on Ferrix, hoping to find and capture Cassian, seeking forgiveness and full reinstatement in service. The funeral soon begins, but instead of the expected 20 people, the entire town gathers in the square. Fearing chaos, the Imperial garrison stations guards and surrounds the townspeople. During the funeral, a droid plays a message from Marva, urging the people to fight the Empire until their last breath. This sparks a riot, leading to a brawl and gunfire. Stormtroopers open fire indiscriminately, with no regard for human lives. The son of the deceased radio operator uses explosives in an attempt to kill Miro for what they did to his father, but she miraculously survives. The crowd tries to tear her apart, but Cyril saves her and leads her to a safe place. Using the chaos and gunfire as cover, Cassian skillfully evades those chasing him. The garrison has informants, and Vel and her partner are also trying to track him down, but all their efforts are in vain. Cassian sneaks into a hotel where the security forces are based and rescues a worn-out Bix. During the ensuing shootout, Brasso, the son of a radio operator, and a few others manage to escape and decide to leave the planet on a surviving spaceship. Cassian asks them to take care of Bix and promises to find them once things settle down. Moved by the uprising, Luthen returns to his ship, where Cassian is waiting for him. Cassian hands Luthen a weapon and gives him two choices: carry out his original plan and get rid of him, or let him join the rebel ranks. Luthen is pleased to have a skilled fighter like Cassian on their side against the tyrannical Empire. Meanwhile, it's revealed that the droids are using parts assembled by prisoners to construct the Death Star. Do you think it's possible to eradicate tyranny and establish a world of democracy and respect for people, or will there always be those who oppose it? Share your thoughts in the comments down below, give a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel.